My name is Pat Dragon, and I'm a One Mission Society missionary. I work with ECC and Dynamic Women, but I'm also a Dynamic Women in Missions liaison. I do this mission work all over the world. I'm based here in Greenwood, Indiana, but I go to Asia, I go to Africa, I go to soon be going to South America, so it literally is all over the world. I circle the globe at least a couple of times a year. I began in 2008 with One Mission Society, but I would say my travel has picked up really in the last few years. I would do ministry in South Asia twice a year, but the kind of trainings that I do of empowering women has really picked up. And it depends on whether I'm in country or out of country. If I'm here, I'm either training a team to go, or I'm writing curriculum for when the team goes, or in meetings. Mostly I do a lot of training over Zoom because the people that go on the team are scattered all over the U.S. And so that's just an easy way for us to do that. If I'm overseas, I'm in training mode, and it's almost like you're on duty 24/7 because you get up early, and I always make sure that my team starts with devotion in the morning. We go throughout the day and do our training. In the evenings, we have a little downtime. We debrief a little bit of what the day was like, what could we have done better, what do we want to change for tomorrow, and then you fall into bed exhausted, and you get up the next morning and do it all over again. Let's start in Asia. That's probably my specialty because I'm the Associate Church Multiplication Facilitator there. We are preparing for a great big 20-year celebration. They've been a partner with OMS for 20 years, and they are going to train 2,000 people in seed sower information. Okay, so how to share the gospel, how to identify those people that don't know Christ, how to give their 15-second testimony, and how to lead those simple Bible studies for discipleship. In India, where I'm seeing really some exciting things. I just got back from a trip in April where we trained a little over 400 women in some seed sower material, and got to see a lot of good fruit from that. We have trainers in a certain part of Africa. I'm not sure if I should say the name, and we're working on the second site in Africa, and we'll have trainers there with another team going in October. I've had food poisoning, and we think that I had a episode with gout. Not convinced that's what it was, but where my foot got really swollen and I had to miss one of the days of training. But you know, the unique thing about that is you just thank God for the conflict, you know? And I recognize it as spiritual warfare, but God used it because my teams needed to realize that they could do the training without me. And that's what I'm raising them up to do. And so God just used those instances to prove to them that, oh, we can do this. We're well trained. There's no fear there. So I have a stronger team because of it. Anytime you pour yourself into others and you see them rise up and see God use them in powerful ways, that's what gets me excited, and I have seen that. Sorry. I've seen that in the women that I take with me, and I'm seeing it in the women in the field. And to see them walk in, the women there that we train, their heads might be down and they might feel low self-esteem, uncomfortable with who they are. But after being in a training, you see them literally raise their head up and start smiling and laughing and sharing with each other. And it's like their confidence has been built and they know who they are in Christ, and that gives them an identity that is worth the world. So we had trained 120 pastors' wives in seed sowing skills. We had a whole day training. And then the next couple of days we did a medical clinic. And as a part of the medical clinic, they have to share with the people, each patient, the gospel. That's the whole purpose, so that these new people can hear the gospel. Well, we had a little difficulty at the first one because they weren't quite ready to share the gospel. Even though we had trained the 120, they weren't members of the church that we were in, except for one young lady who happened to be leading the worship with the women that had attended. And she, we had asked the pastor, can you find someone to share the gospel? That's the important part. And you know, we waited, and he looked at us like a deer in the headlights, and so we assumed that the answer was no. And we asked him a couple times. We said, well, how about a tract? Do you have a tract that they can take them through? He didn't have any tracts. And so we said one more time, who can share the gospel? And we heard this little voice over in the you know, a ways away, and her name was Ruby, and she said, I can do that. I was trained. And so she walked over and she sat down and she shared the gospel with almost 200 patients that came through the next 2 days, and she led 9 people to the Lord. Now that was a surprise, but there's another one. Because of what happened at that first one, I thought, okay, what about that other church that we're going to do a medical clinic at? Are those people prepared? And so we went there, and we had them call the pastor, and I said, if you can get 10 people together, I'll take the team, we'll go, and we'll train them on how to share that gospel. And so that was arranged because they didn't have people ready to do that either. We arrived, we had about an hour to do the training, and we had to move it from the church because they were putting marble floors down, and we couldn't even hear ourselves think because they were sawing the marble and laying it on the floor in preparation for that medical clinic. So we said, is there another place we can go to do the training? And we ended up going to the pastor's house, which was around the wall and down a ways. We get into the home, we get settled, and there's about 10 to 12 people that we're going to train. And I pray, and I said, you know, we're ready to start. And this one little gal named Marielle raises her hand and says, could I share my testimony? And I thought, okay. In India, you never know if you're going to get a 5-minute version, a 10-minute version, 15 or 20-minute. It could go on for half an hour. We had an hour to do training. But I felt a check in my spirit, and I said, yes, if you can make it short and concise. And if it goes on too long, I may have to stop you because we are limited on our time. And I said it as kindly as I could. She stands up. She gives a perfect 15-second testimony. And after I picked my chin up off the floor, I said, who shared that with you? How did you learn that? And she points across the room to her pastor's wife, Jyoti, who had been at the training on that Saturday. She had come home the following Sunday and taught the women in her church how to share their 15-second testimony. And it was amazing. And of course, everybody else wanted to share their testimony. We listened to one more, and I said, I really would like to hear it, but we've got to do the training. So that was just a blessing, and kind of funny because I did not expect that. As part of training and preparing the team that's going in, We really have to go back. There's a book I've shared with you gals, Foreign to Familiar. We read that every time. It refreshes our mind on the cultural differences, that it might be time, it might be how we view relationship. And so we have to get our mind switched to that culture. Another thing that we really try to do is I encourage the team, don't assume that they're wrong, because they're not. It's just different. And so it's different on every field. We try to review some of the greetings of that country. We talk about, okay, this is how you greet in this country. It's different than how you do it in other countries. But we have discovered that in every country, they love to be hugged. And so we do that for every session. When they first come in, that's what my team does. It's like this force that goes out, and we greet each person and we hug them and we tell them we're glad they're there. Even whether they understand us or not, they understand the smile and they understand the touch. Now, in some countries, you have to be careful. You don't hug men. You shake their hand, but you introduce them and you smile. I would love to see some of the women at World Gospel Church come on a team. I really would, and I would love some of them to be some of those that I can train to release a field to. And when I say that, what it means is it's a 2 to 4 year commitment. By then, God's going to have your heart, and you're going to want to continue anyway. I've been going to South Asia now for 8 years. It's amazing how fast it works. But they're part of my family now. And I would hope that some women from World Gospel would take that challenge and would say, I can make that commitment 2 times a year to go, to do training, to build relationships. And it means so much to them when we come back and back and back. And they see you and they recognize you, and you start recognizing them, and you learn about their families and their children, and they become part of your family. So that's what I would like to see. And I love your prayers. Don't stop praying. I love World Gospel. It trained me. It was a part of my training so that I could do what I do today. I wouldn't be here without World Gospel.